Hello guys, welcome. Alright, so in our previous video we talked about the some file handling, file viewing commands. So in this video we are going to be looking at permission system. Now permissions are necessary to mitigate unauthorized operation on a particular file, right? So if you have a file and only a particular group of users should be able to work on that file, read or execute or write to that file. You The only way to control it is by setting specific permission. And in Linux comes with deny by default design, meaning if you just create a user without giving them permission, they will not have any permission. So let's see how that works. There are a few things we are going to be learning in this particular video. So one, we are going to be learning how to create the user, create a group, add a user to the group, then set permissions, right? So let's begin by firstly creating the group or creating the user, whichever that we do first does not really matter. So here we are going straight up. First thing I'm going to do is say sudo, right? So sudo, I want to say group add. This is how you add a group in Linux. Group add. So I'm going to call this dev group, right? Let's call it cybersec. So this cybersecurity group, we can call it SOC group, right? SOC. So for SOC analyst, all I need to do is to put my password and then the group is created, right? So now let's create a user. So the user we are going to create, we can say sudo add user. You can also use user add, right? I would say use add user, and I'm going to call this user praise, right? So that's the name of the user. But then I need this user to have a home directory. So because I need the user to have a home directory, I'm going to append something else here before. So like this, then I'll click on create, right? And then add an existing group. Yeah, this is just telling me what to do next. But then the next thing I want to do is to add the user to the group, right? But before I do that, I will need to set password for this user. So sudo pass wd, then praise, right? And it's user praise does not exist now. Okay, let's see what we did. Unknown options okay. All right, so say sudo user add dash m, then praise, right? All right, we have created the user now. So now we next thing we want to do is, please take note of how we added the user, right? The add user didn't work with this option to create home directory, so we decided to use the user add, right? So the next thing we want to do is to add this party. Before we add this user to the any group, we want to set a password for them so that they can log in. So we say sudo pass wd, right? And then I'll just say praise. So it's telling me to give it a password, which I will do. I will repeat the password, and password have been updated. So this is what we are going to do next. Add the user to the group, right? So we say modify user, so sudo user modify, right? Modify user, and then we say append user to group. And what is the group name? We say cybersec, I believe that's what we used. And which user? The username is praise, right? So just click on this, say cybersec does not exist, let's see the name we use. Okay, sock. Apologies. So we say sudo, yes, and instead of cybersec, we're going to be saying sock, right? And then yeah, the user is added. Okay, so now this user has been added to the group called sock. Let's now try and log in as the user. Now, if you watched our previous video, you see where I mentioned that when we're using pwd, I said you may not necessarily, please go back to the first video in this playlist, you see it, the essential Linux command basic navigation. You are going to see where I said if you are using pwd, right, you are not going to necessarily see the importance because we are seeing our working directory from here, but now you are going to see the importance. Remember, we just created a new user and a new group. Now we have added this user to this group now, right? So but we haven't given any permission to this user yet. So right now I'm going to open another Linux terminal, right? So let me just spin up another terminal, and then here I'm going to log into this new account I created. So I can say switch user, and then I can say login, right? Login, then my username, which is Chris. I'll put my password, and now I'm logged in. Now if you see something, you see that in this second one that I logged in, I cannot see my working directory. So let's say clear. You can see I can't see my working directory. This is where the pwd is now important. So you can see that when I use the pwd, it's telling me where I am. But if I don't use it, I won't be able to know where I am. So even if I'm on my desktop, my document, the part that I am currently in, I will not really know because it's not showing here. This is the classic behavior when you SSH into any system. That's why the pwd is important. Before you run certain commands, you want to check the directory you are, if that directory is where that command should be run or not, right? Okay, so that's for that. So now let's try to say we want to go to desktop, and you see cd can't cd to desktop, right? Why? Because no permission. So let's say list desktop, and you say we don't, no such file or directory. So let's try to make directory. We are going to say make directory desktop, and then if we say list, now we have desktop. We can say cd, yes, you can say cd desktop, right? Desktop. Now if we do our pwd again, you can see we are inside our desktop. So this is the user we just created for the sock. But now the user can easily create their own files, right? The user can create their own file, the user can do their own thing. But if we have a file here, if we have a file inside our project, that of course the reason why we didn't employ somebody into a company for them to be doing their own thing. There is already existing file that they will work with. So let's create a new file. Let's just say documents. So let's go to documents, right? So here let's create a new file, and we are going to call it log.txt, right? So inside this document we have log.txt. Now let's give that particular user the right. So that's where we now have something like sudo change owner, right? Change ownership, and we have sock as a group. Then firstly we need the username, and then we have the group sock, and then the name of the project, the file is log.txt, right? So what we are doing is that we are changing who has right to this file, this particular file, and we said anybody that is inside this, and this particular user too has right to work inside this file, right? So the next thing we want to do is to set permission. So we can say sudo yes, sudo, then you can say change mode, right? And then what, let's say 770, and then we want to give it to this log.txt, right? So now what does it mean? I'm going to explain this briefly, so stay tuned. This 7 stands for owner, this other 7 stands for group, and this last one stands for others. So what we have just done is that we are giving all permission to the owner, which, remember, we changed the owner here, and we are giving all permission to the group here. But if it's not the owner, which we have made praise, and it's not the group, which is sock, then we don't need anybody to have access to this file. That is what we just done, right? So we have given all permissions to this. So let's verify by saying list, then this. So we are going to see this, right? So we have praise on the group sock, which was created not quite long. What do we have access to? This is our file, right? We have access to this, and this other two belongs to Kali, which is our what we have been working with. But this one now, the owner is now praised because we changed the ownership. If we what you will do for yourself is these files that we have been creating ever since, just try and make this one, make praise the owner of this particular file, and see how it works, right? When you see, when you finish, just see how it works. Okay, so now that we have made this, the user from this other end can now work with this particular file. They can edit it, they can modify it, they can do whatever they want to do with that file, view what is inside, edit what is inside, or even delete, because we gave them full permission, right? So let's try and log into this file, right? So we have here we are already logged in as praise. Let's clear the screen. But here, you if you notice, let's go back to this previous one. Let me show you something. If you notice right here, let's look for this particular log is inside our documents, right? And this document is located inside Kali, right? Inside Kali. But if we come here and pwd now, you see that this is praise, right? So what we need to do is to see how to enter there. So we can say cd, then go back to our home. Let's verify. Okay, so now we want to say cd, right? Forward slash home, forward slash Kali, forward slash documents, right? Documents, then we have log.txt. Instead of cd, we are going to say cat, because of course it's actually, let's go back. So we say cat, we want to see what is inside. uh Home, Kali, right, which is our main user, then documents, then we have log.txt. Okay, permission denied, right? So we have been denied permission to view this file, even though permission was given. So now we need to look for a way to give that particular user the permission, right? So that is the advantage of using permission system in Linux. So nobody can just enter your file and start working on it. So but before we end this video, there is one important thing you need to know. So let me just explain this permission better for you. Okay, so this is how permissions work in Linux, right? So we have four, right? We have two, and we have one, and we have zero, right? So four, this four stands for read, and this stands for write, and this stands for execute, right? So execute. So you see something like arrow, you see something like arrow wx, right? It stands for read, write, and execute. Right? So if and Linux is broken into three. The permission system in Linux is broken into three. We have the user, which is the first letter. Then we have the group, which is the second letter, and we now have others, right, which is the last letter. So when you see something like 777, what you are saying is this owner, which is the user, right, the owner of the file has all permission. The group that owner belongs to, that file belongs to, has all permissions, and other people in that system also have all permission, which is, this is totally not acceptable, not actually good, right? You don't want everybody having access. So now, if you have something like this, if we have something like this, 755, which is popular, right? What you are saying is, this is how that conclusion come about. This, remember, this is user, this is group, this is others, right? So for the user, you are saying the user has read, so the user can read the file. The user have write, so the user can write into the file, and the user has execute, so the user can run the file. Yeah, right. That is for this one, because if you add 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 4 is 7. That's where we come about this 7. But for the group, we are saying the group has read, which is 4, and execute, which is 1. So 1 plus 4 is 5. So 4 is for read and 1 is for execute, right? So this particular one has what is called arrow dash x, right? This is how it is written, arrow dash x, where arrow is for read, 4, right? Dash means no permission, right? So which is this one, dash means no permission. This one is no, no. So dash no permission, then 1, which is execute, right? So this user can read the content of that particular file and run the file, but they cannot make changes to that file. The same thing with this one, right? So this is how we come about those. So for this particular one that is 7, we have arrow w, pardon me please, arrow wx, like this, right? Arrow wx. So we have arrow ws, which is read, write, and execute. All permissions are given. That's 7 by adding these numbers. But for this one, we have arrow dash x, meaning read, no permission for write, then execute. The same thing with this. So if we have something like 7, let's say we have something like 6, you see this common in Linux environment, 644. If you see something like this, 644, right? What does it mean? Remember, 6 is 4 plus 2, right? So this will be read, write, but no execute. So you put dash there. No, this one is not given. So this and this. Then 4. What is 4? 4 is just read. So this now can be read, then dash dash, meaning no execute, no permission for execution, and write. The same thing with this one, right? So this is when you see all these letters. I'm saying this because when we run our, if you run your command here, if you do something like list, then with permission, this is what you are going to be seeing. So you can see for this first file, from what I just explained now, for this first file we have dash no permission for, which one is this, no permission for execute, but we have the read and write permission for the user. Then For the group, the same thing, and for others it's only read. You can see read, no permission for write, no permission for execute. So for the owner can read and write but no execute. The group can read and write but no execute, while other people can only read, they cannot write, they cannot execute, right? It is this write permission that gives us the ability to make changes to the file. The same thing with this. And if we come to this particular one that we just created, you will see that this one have read and write for the user, right? But no execution. Then if you check, you see that we have read and write, sorry, we have read and write, then execute for the user and for the uh, group, right? Read, write, execute for user and for group. But if you look at this other one, no, there is no permission at all, no read, no write, no execute. Why is this so? If you remember, we give 770 permission. So 7 is all permission, read, write, execute, which is what you are seeing here for the user. The second one here is for this group, which is read, write, execute. But for the last one, which is others, we didn't give any permission. So you see, that's why it's like that. All of them, no permission at all for other users. So this is how the permission system in Linux work, right? If you have any challenges, just drop it at the comment section and we'll attend to it. So in this video, we have learned how to create a user, create a group, add a user to the group. Now, it is important you create groups and add users to the groups, then give permission to that group. Why is it more necessary? Why is it easier that way? If I have a group, say sock, like I just created, I can create a new user and give that user add that user to that sock group without giving the user any permission. Now, the sock group already has permission. So those permission that the sock group already has, the user will by default inherit them the moment you add the user to that group. So it is a much better approach than giving the same permission to different users. So if there are 10 users that should have the same permission, instead of giving them the permission one by one individually, just create a group, put all of them inside that group and give the permission to that group. So anytime you remove a user from that group, that user is not going to have those permissions again. But anytime you add a new user to that group, that user is going to have those permissions. So that's why the group is important. So good. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you like videos like this, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more of videos like this and for more inciting videos about the cybersecurity space. Also share with your friends, like, comment, drop your thoughts below. Thank you. See you in the next video.